When I first met Lila, she was the only thing in my world that didn't feel like a hustle. I'd spent my whole life chasing shadows, cars, cash, trust that evaporated faster than gun smoke. But she was sunlight in a room full of thieves. The kind of woman who could make a man like me believe in something clean. That's why when she said, "I love you," I believed her. Fool that I was. Now, sitting in this cold cell with a busted lip and bruised ribs, I've got nothing but time to think about how it all went down. The deal, the setup, the betrayal. How the woman I would have taken a bullet for sold me out to the very people I'd been dodging my whole damn life. It started 3 weeks ago, the night everything turned. I was in the back office of Ray's Bar on 9th Street, counting cash from a job that should have been routine, an armored van on the 405, clean takedown, no casualties. We were ghosts before the sirens showed. I'd planned it perfect, like always. But that night, Ray kept glancing at his phone like it was ticking. That should have been my first sign. "Your girl's been calling," he said, sliding the burner toward me. "Says it's urgent." I should have ignored it. In this line of work, love is a liability. But I answered anyway. Her voice trembled. "Danny, you need to come home. Now." I didn't even finish the count. Something in her tone, soft, scared, pulled me harder than any alarm bell. I drove like a man possessed, engine screaming, city lights blurring into streaks. Our apartment was dark when I arrived, door cracked open just enough to make my gut twist. Inside, the place looked untouched, no struggle, no mess. Just silence. Then I saw her sitting at the kitchen table, hands clasped like she was praying. She looked up at me with those wide, tear-glazed eyes, the ones that used to undo me. "Danny," she whispered, "they know." "Who?" I stepped closer, scanning every corner, instinct roaring to life. "The cops. They came by. They asked about you." My heart kicked against my ribs. I'd been careful, always careful. No prints, no paper trail, no witnesses. "What did you tell them?" She hesitated, eyes flicking to the side like she was chasing the truth she'd already buried. "Nothing. I swear. But they said they had proof. That if I didn't cooperate, I'd go down too." The words hit harder than any punch. I wanted to believe her. God, I did. But something in the way her hands shook, the way her voice cracked, didn't feel like fear. It felt like guilt. I reached for her chin, made her look at me. "Lila, tell me the truth. Did you give them my name?" Her lips trembled. "I did it for us. They promised if I helped, we could disappear. Witness protection. New names, new lives." I stepped back, the floor shifting under me. "You sold me out for a fairy tale?" Tears spilled down her cheeks. "I was scared, Danny. You were changing. I thought one day you'd end up in a ditch or a cell. I couldn't lose you. Too late for that." I turned toward the window, heart pounding, mind racing. If the cops knew, they'd be moving fast. I needed to clear out, burn everything, vanish. But before I could move, I heard the sirens, faint at first, then closer, screaming through the streets like wolves scenting blood. I looked back at her. She couldn't even meet my eyes. "You called them here," I said quietly. "I had to," she whispered. "They said it was the only way." My fists clenched. Every instinct screamed to run, to fight, to break something, anything, but all I could do was stare at the woman who'd once sworn she'd die for me. "Then you should have told them to bring body bags." The door exploded inward before she could answer. Flashlights, boots, shouts. "Down! Get down!" I hit the floor, hands over my head, the taste of betrayal sharper than the cold steel snapping around my wrists. As they dragged me out, I caught one last look at her. She stood frozen in the doorway, tears shining under the red-blue lights. To anyone else, she looked like the grieving lover. To me, she was the knife in my back. That was 3 weeks ago. Since then, I've learned a few things, like how fast loyalty burns, and how slow revenge cooks. They think they've got me locked away, finished. But I've still got cards to play. Friends on the outside. Secrets the cops haven't found. And Lila, sweet, guilty Lila, she doesn't know yet that I left her something, too. A little message. A little payback. Because love might have made me blind, but betrayal? Betrayal sharpened my vision. And now I see everything. County time slows the blood. The lights never go off, they just hum softer, and the air tastes like rust and mop water. You learn the schedule the way a safecracker learns tumblers. Breakfast at 5, counts at 8 and noon, lights fake dim at 10:30. In between, the place breathes. Guards gossip. Doors cough. Men measure each other with eyes that already wrote the eulogy. They tossed me in B tier, third cell from the camera that always needs a part. That's how you know somebody in this building plays both sides. The lens blinks like it's thinking about something, then falls asleep. Good. I like sleepy cameras. My cellie was a stringy kid with stick-and-poke saints on his knuckles and a stare like an empty bottle. Name was Marco. Boosted cars, crashed 2, ran from 1. He talked because silence scared him. I let him. People who are afraid of silence pay with information. "You the guy from the 405 van?" he asked the first night, whispering into his pillow like it could keep secrets. I didn't answer. I was listening to the pipes. You can tell the time by them after a while. Somewhere below us, laundry machines gasping, somewhere above us, the chapel sink coughing up old prayers. Marco took my quiet as permission to keep going. "Word is you got done dirty by a girl," he said. "Happens, man. They cry, you buy it. Next thing you know, your shoelaces belong to the state." I rolled onto my back and counted ceiling bolts. Word travels fast. In here it travels first. By day 3, I had the layout. C.O. Walker walked like a man wearing someone else's shoes, never comfortable, always leaving. He spent too long near the vending machines and flinched when Banger Mike cleared his throat. Debt. C.O.s like Walker rent their spines to whoever pays on time. Useful. The detectives came twice. First one was named Ortega, hair clipped precise, eyes like wet gravel. The other, Parson, carried his belt weight like it hurt him. They tried good cop, bad cop, then bored cop, desperate cop. They placed photos on the table. Lila. Our front room. Her signature on the witness form like a bruise. "She cooperated," Ortega said, tapping the page. "She's safe now. If you care about her, help us." I looked at my cuffs, the tiny scuffs on the steel. Funny the things you notice when your life fits between your wrists. You want me to give you ghosts. Everybody I run with already died or became a memory. Parson leaned in. "We know about the Black Ledger." Now that was a surprise. I kept my face a straight wall, but inside, something shifted a chair. The ledger was rumor dressed like a secret. Every dirty penny washed through a certain Riviera lounge, every cop who smiled for a bribe, every cashiered badge that learned to salute cash instead of the flag. I'd only ever heard it, never seen it. But the way Parson said it, like he wanted me to believe they were close. Maybe they were fishing. Maybe they were hungry. Maybe both. "Never heard of it," I said. Ortega slid another photo across. Not Lila. A man, a bony suit with a piranha smile. I knew him. Sergeant Kellen. Internal Affairs attack dog when the department wanted to eat its own. He'd pressed me against a hood 2 summers back and asked me to name a captain who wore a gold watch to poker. I didn't. He broke a rib for my silence. "Recognize him?" Ortega asked. "I recognize a habit," I said. "He still drink his coffee like it owes him money?" They didn't smile. "He's on your wife's case," Parson said. "Protection detail." I almost laughed. The city had put a wolf to guard my lamb. Not because they loved her. Because she was leverage, and men like Kellen know how to tune a lever until it sings. When they were done posturing, they left me with a pen that didn't write and a paper cup of water that tasted like coinage. On my way back to B tier, Walker brushed my shoulder with his keys. "Accidental, if you were blind." "Laundry day tomorrow," he said to no one in particular. "Dryers act up sometimes. Maintenance hates it. Controls blink. Cameras too." He didn't look at me. He didn't have to. In our business, information is the only honest love letter. That night, I started cooking the first course of my revenge. Jail runs on favors. Commissary is prayer. I traded 2 honey buns and a stamped envelope to a tattooed accountant in C-tier to draft a kite, one of those folded notes that crawl under doors like mice. The message was simple. Tell Ray to open the memory box. Tell him the number is the day she said forever. Ray would know. He was the bartender, but also the archivist of all our sins. The memory box sat under the floorboard in his office, behind a busted neon sign. Inside, a little black Nokia with a battery that held charge like a grudge and a contact labeled only with a lipstick icon. The day she said forever? Our wedding date reversed. 0714 becomes 4170, and then you move the 0. It was a code we used for hotel rooms, storage units, life stashed between lines. Ray would pull the SIM, plug it into the cheap phone, and text a single word to that contact, awake. Awake wasn't for Lila. Awake was for the girl who taught Lila how to pick a lock with a hairpin and steal a diamond with a smile, Rena. My ghost from another life. Lila called her a bad influence. I called her an insurance policy I hoped I'd never cash. At count, I watched Walker do the math on his nerves. Whatever he owed, it made his hands shake when he passed by Mike's cell. I slipped my own IOU onto his cart, a folded page under a pack of menthols from a black market carton. Inside the fold, a phone card number, 5 digits of sweet relief, and a promise that debts have sunsets. Laundry's early, Walker murmured 2 hours later, eyes averted. The siren for movement blared, bodies flowed, cart squealed. I kept my pace slow, my face dumb. The dryer in the corner of the laundry room rattled like it was full of bones. When the guard turned to talk to maintenance, the control panel sprang from red to nothing, blink, then back to life. 30 seconds of blind. That's an eternity if you've got the hands for it. Marco coughed, stepped left, blocked 2 lines of sight. I lifted the access panel on the vent, fingers finding the tape I'd palmed under my waistband. The first gift I'd been given in here was a spoon. The second was time. The tape stuck, the package slid. Inside the vent, something waited, a paperback novel with a spine swollen from humidity. I cracked it just enough to feel the cut pages, the hollow pocket in the middle. The shank taped inside wasn't for stabbing. It was for prying. And wedged behind it, wrapped in latex like a dirty secret, was the thing that warms a cold heart, a SIM the size of a nail clipping, pre-registered to a dead man in another county. I didn't need a whole phone. I just needed one call. Back in the tier, Mike traded a cell-mast view for 2 packs and a story. At 2 a.m., the tower near the courthouse hiccups. It always does, a software update that drops signals like loose change. Walker knew it. Rena would, too. All I had to do was get my SIM near his radio for 3 seconds and piggyback whatever call was already trying to escape this place. The chance came during meds. Walker leaned, scanners beeped, guys shuffled forward with their pill cup lies. I tripped, fell into his forearm, said sorry with my eyes. The SIM kissed his radio like a thief's blessing, and when it clicked back behind my molar where I'd hidden it, my tongue tasted victory. 3 seconds is a lifetime. Enough to marry a signal. After lights fake dimmed, Marco finally asked the thing that had been chewing his tongue raw. What are you gonna do when you get out? I watched the wall where paint remembered older, better paint. I'm not getting out, I said. He stared. Then what's the plan? A message. To who? To everyone. I closed my eyes and pictured Lila in the safe house the city rented by the week. Beige walls. 2 locks. 1 cop who thinks his badge is armor. She'd be sitting on the edge of a bed that remembered too many bodies, twisting her fingers, replaying the last look I gave her. She'd tell herself she did the right thing. She'd hope I hated her enough to stop loving her. That's the lie people tell when they're trying to sleep. Rena would knock twice and not wait for an answer. She'd smile with too many teeth, hug Lila like forgiveness, and slip a phone into her hand with a text already blinking. Play me. The audio attached would be short. Lila's own voice, recorded the week before the armored van job, whispering into the dark, "He'll be at Ray's by 9. He'll leave the back way. Don't mess it up." I hadn't recorded it. Kellen had. Men like him record everything. But men like me learn where those recordings live. Sometimes on a sergeant's personal cloud. Sometimes in a ledger that doesn't exist. Sometimes both. Parson wanted the black ledger? Let him have a page. Let him see a list of payouts that traced a pretty arc from the van company's insurance adjuster to a deputy commissioner's lake house to a sergeant's burner in a safe behind his kids' soccer trophies. You hurt me with the law, Lila. I'd hurt you with the truth. I felt the tears settle, snores starting, whispers dying. I slid the sim from my mouth and tucked it inside the spine of a Bible no one read. Even God understands the need for a hiding place. When the tower hiccup came at 2:07, my signal traveled. Ray's phone chimed. Rena's eyes lit. Somewhere a server opened its throat and swallowed a file it wasn't supposed to see. Somewhere else, Kellen's safe blinked green, then wondered why its battery felt warm. I'm not a good man. I don't pretend otherwise. But I keep my promises. I promised myself I'd get back at the people who mistook my heart for a handle. Tomorrow, Ortega will come back hungrier. Walker will sweat debt. Marco will ask for stories about cars that purr like sin. And Lila will learn what it feels like when love starts telling the truth out loud. Part 1 was betrayal. Part 2 is pressure. The next part, that's when the pipe bursts. They woke me before dawn. 2 guards, both silent, both avoiding my eyes like they knew something had shifted in the dark. The hallway smelled of bleach and cold metal. Somewhere behind us, a door slammed and a man cursed in Spanish. I counted the steps, 38 from cell to interrogation. Same route, but the air was different. Charged. Like the building itself knew a secret. Detective Ortega sat waiting, tie loosened, eyes red from a night without sleep. Parson wasn't there. Just Ortega and a file thick enough to be dangerous. He didn't start with small talk. You've been busy, he said, sliding the file across. Inside were printouts, transaction logs, emails, photos of men in suits shaking hands in back rooms. Payouts tied to city contracts, police pensions, shell companies. My handwriting in the corner of one page. Not mine exactly, but close enough to pass. This came across my desk an hour ago, he said. Anonymous tip. Digital signature routed through 5 VPNs, traced to nowhere. You wouldn't happen to know anything about that, would you? I leaned back, letting the chair creak. I've been locked in a box for 21 days, detective. Hard to run a hacker operation from a concrete shoebox. He smirked, tired and mean. Funny thing is, this file exposes half the department. The other half wants to bury it. Someone out there is trying to burn the city down with truth. I didn't answer. He studied me, tapping his pen against the folder. Your wife's name is in here. Lila Cole. She's listed as an informant paid through a dummy fund. 10,000 wired 3 days before your arrest. You sure you want to keep protecting her? That stung deeper than I expected. 10 grand, that's what my life was worth to her. Not freedom. Not safety. A payout. I forced my voice flat. You think I care about a list of dirty money? I've seen worse carved into bathroom stalls. Ortega sighed. Listen, Danny. You're good at what you do. Too good to rot here while politicians use you as smoke cover. Somebody's playing a bigger game. Help me understand it. Maybe we both walk out cleaner. I smiled without humor. You're not asking me to talk, detective. You're asking me to confirm what you already know. He hesitated, then closed the file. Fine. Sit tight. Things are moving. When they dragged me back to B-tier, Walker was gone. New CO, square shoulders, eyes that scanned like scanners. Someone had shuffled the deck. Marco whispered as soon as the door closed behind us. Your friend in blue got reassigned. Word is administration's panicking. They think someone's leaking from inside. I sat on the bunk, staring at the cinderblock wall. Every piece was falling the way I'd nudged it. Ortega had the bait now, the ledger fragment Rena seeded through the server. He'd chase it because he was hungry, not because he trusted me. And while he chased, the rest would start tearing each other apart. Dirty cops don't fear jail, they fear exposure. By nightfall, rumors spilled through the tiers like gasoline. An internal affairs raid downtown. 2 captains suspended. A sergeant caught shredding files. I listened, silent, patient. Revenge wasn't about rage anymore. It was architecture. On the fourth day, a letter arrived through legal mail. Plain envelope, no return address. Inside, a single Polaroid, Lila sitting on a motel bed, eyes swollen, hand gripping a disposable phone. Beside her, a man in a cheap suit, Kellen. The back of the photo read, "She's cracking. 2 days max." Rena's handwriting. Efficient as ever. I folded the photo and tucked it behind my mattress. The part of me that still loved Lila twisted, but the rest stayed cold. She chose her side. Now she'd live with it. That night, Marco couldn't sleep. He kept asking questions he didn't want answers to. What happens when they realize it's you? When they trace it back? They won't, I said. By the time they look, the path'll point somewhere else. Where? To whoever thinks they're smartest. He shivered, turning away. Some people think revenge is fire. They're wrong. It's ice. You shape it, wait for the cracks. 2 days later, chaos hit like thunder. Sirens inside, boots running, orders shouted. Every inmate shoved against the wall while teams swept cells. I stood still, hands laced behind my head, watching the searchers rip through my mattress, my books, my shoes. They found nothing. The Bible stayed on the shelf, pages glued tight around its hollow. The warden himself came down after. Big man with a neck like a stump. He looked at me like I was a puzzle he didn't ask for. "Whatever storm you brought in here, Cole, it's spilling over. Keep your head low or you'll drown in it." I nodded. I'm good at holding my breath. After lights out, a voice slid through the vent. Soft, female, confident. Message delivered. "She's asking for you." Rena. Somehow she'd hacked the old ventilation trick, whispering from a maintenance crawlspace like a ghost. "What'd she say?" I murmured. "She wants to meet. Says she can fix it." "She can't fix anything. She's scared, Danny." I closed my eyes, picturing Lila's face. Maybe fear would teach her what love couldn't. Tell her to wait. 2 more days. Why? Because in 2 days, the whole city will know the truth. Rena laughed quietly. "You always did like fireworks." When morning came, the newspapers hit the block before breakfast. Front page. Police payoff scandal explodes. Internal sources leak documents. Names, dates, wire transfers. Exactly the package I'd planned. Every crooked badge listed, every payout traced. Kellen's name circled in red. And buried halfway down the story, a single line. Informant LC cooperated with federal authorities. Lila's safety net just turned into a spotlight. By noon, they moved me to solitary for my protection. 4 concrete walls, no window, just a slit of light that couldn't decide if it belonged. Perfect place to watch the city burn. From the corridor came fragments of guard chatter. Feds arriving, warrants flying, 2 suicides already. I sat on the cot and listened like it was music. Each note another debt collected. I thought about Lila, somewhere under false lights, realizing every promise Kellen made was ash. She'd understand soon enough that betrayal cuts both ways. I didn't want her dead. I wanted her honest. Truth is the cruelest punishment. The vent hissed again that night. Rena's voice low. "She wants to see you. Says she'll tell everything. Trade her freedom for yours." I almost laughed. There's no trade left. Only consequences. "You still love her?" I took a long breath, letting the silence answer. Love didn't matter anymore. Justice did, our kind of justice. 2 days from now, Ortega would walk into a federal briefing with the rest of the ledger decrypted. He'd realize I'd built him a map, one that led straight to Kellen, the man who sold Lila her salvation and pocketed her betrayal. When that hammer fell, the deal she thought saved her would crush him instead. And when the dust settled, they'd have no choice but to let me go. A tainted witness is useless. A free ghost? That's a problem they can't predict. I lay back on the cot, listening to the building hum, and whispered to the ceiling, "Almost time." The light in solitary never really goes out. It just fades until it becomes a memory on the wall, something between dusk and regret. I spent 2 nights there, counting the cracks in the concrete, each one another lie I'd swallowed. On the 3rd morning, the door clanged open, and Ortega stood there with a file under his arm and exhaustion carved into his face. "Pack up," he said. "You're being transferred." I raised an eyebrow. "Where?" "Protective custody. Federal wing." That meant the storm had gotten bigger than the city could hide. I followed him through corridors humming with tension. Guards whispered, radios crackled, the whole place felt like a wound that wouldn't close. Outside, the transport van waited, black windows, unmarked plates. 2 marshals, faces blank, hands heavy on their holsters. We rode in silence for miles. The road twisted through industrial parks, past shuttered warehouses and billboards peeling under the sun. I watched the world through the cage window. Same city, different angle. Somewhere out there, Lila was learning how fragile protection could be when the protectors started eating each other. When we stopped, it wasn't at another prison. It was a courthouse garage, underground, echoing with footsteps and secrets. Ortega led me to a small interview room, table, 2 chairs, a recorder already blinking red. Across from me sat a woman in a navy suit, sharp eyes, calm smile. "Agent Monroe," she said, extending a hand. "Department of Justice. You've caused quite a stir, Mr. Cole." "I've been told I'm memorable," I said. She opened a folder thick with pages. "The documents you, or someone, leaked triggered a federal probe. Half the city's command staff is under investigation. Sergeant Kellen is in custody. Your wife is listed as a cooperating witness, but her statement conflicts with the financial trail. We want to know who else is pulling strings." I leaned back. "You think I'm part of some grand conspiracy? I'm just a thief who got unlucky." Monroe studied me like a safe she planned to crack. "You're more than that. You had access to information no street operator should know. The ledger, the shell companies, the offshore accounts. That's not bad luck. That's intent." I didn't answer. She waited, then slid a photo across the table. Lila again, this time in an interrogation room of her own, eyes swollen, hands clasped. "She's asking for you," Monroe said. "Says she'll only talk if you're present." That surprised me. Guilt can do strange things. Maybe she wanted forgiveness. Maybe she wanted protection from the wolves now circling her. Either way, the feds thought they could use her to get to me. They didn't realize the truth was already moving without them. "I'll talk," I said. "But on record, if I help you, I walk clean." Monroe hesitated. "Depends on what you give us." "I'll give you everything you need," I said quietly, "and one thing you don't." She frowned. "What's that?" "The truth." They brought Lila in an hour later. She looked smaller, like the air had been drained out of her. No makeup, no armor, just the girl I'd once met in a dive bar off 5th Street, the one who stole my lighter and laughed when I asked for it back. When she saw me, her lips trembled. "Danny," she whispered. I didn't move. "You sold me out." Tears welled, but she forced herself upright. "I thought I was saving us. Kellen said if I helped, they'd protect you. That we could disappear. And when he took his cut and left you holding the bag?" She shook her head. "I didn't know about the money. I swear." Monroe watched from the corner, silent, recording everything. Lila reached across the table, fingers trembling. "I told them everything, about the van, the crew, the stash. But they said it's bigger than that. They want names I don't have." "Because they don't exist anymore," I said. "And the ones that do are wearing badges." She flinched. "What did you do, Danny?" "I told the truth," I said. "About them. About Kellen. About how the department used us like pawns in their insurance scam, staging heists, cashing payouts, laundering through shell fronts. You were just the final move." Her eyes widened. "They'll kill us." "No," I said. "They'll kill each other first." Monroe stepped forward. "Mr. Cole, if you have evidence—" "It's already out," I cut in. "Every file, every account. The ledger was real. And by now, every news outlet in the country has a copy." She blinked, calculating. "You leaked federal evidence." "I liberated it," I said. "You wanted corruption. I gave you the map." Lila covered her face, sobbing quietly. I felt nothing. Love had burned away, leaving only purpose. Monroe gathered her papers. You understand this makes you untouchable and radioactive at the same time. No one will trust you. No one will protect you. Then I'm free. She studied me, then nodded to the guards. Process his release. We can't hold him. Lila looked up, panic flooding her voice. You're letting him go. What about me? Monroe sighed. You'll be placed under witness review. But understand, your testimony is compromised. Too many lies. They took her away before she could say more. I watched her go, a shadow shrinking down the hallway. Maybe she'd survive. Maybe not. Either way, her story was no longer mine. They released me at dusk. No cuffs, no escort, just a plain envelope with my belongings, wallet, watch, a folded note I hadn't put there. I opened it. A single line in Rena's hand, North Pier. Tonight. The city outside felt different, sirens distant, streets tense, like everyone was holding their breath. I walked through alleys I used to own, ghosts of old deals whispering from brick walls. At the pier, fog rolled off the water, swallowing the lights. Rena waited by the railing, hood up, cigarette glowing. She looked at me and grinned. Told you it'd work. You pulled it off, I said. Kellen. Gone. Feds grabbed him trying to board a plane. He'll talk before sunrise. And Lila. Rena's smile faded. She's in holding. They'll cut her loose when they realize she's useless. You want me to watch her? I stared out at the dark water, thinking of all the promises we'd broken. No. Let her find her own way. Rena flicked ash into the fog. So what now? I slipped my hands into my jacket pockets, feeling the weight of a world finally balanced. Now I disappear. Where to? Anywhere that doesn't know my name. She nodded, understanding. We stood in silence, waves slapping wood, city lights flickering behind us like dying stars. Somewhere far off, sirens wailed again, different tone this time. Cleansing fire. I took one last look at the skyline. The city had eaten enough of me. It was time to feed it a ghost. When I walked away, the fog closed behind me, erasing footprints, swallowing everything except the sound of the sea and the faint echo of a love that used to mean something. Disappearing isn't the same as leaving. Leaving is bags and goodbyes. Disappearing is subtraction. You take your name off the mail, your face off the mirrors, your heartbeat out of the places that know it too well. I borrowed a key from a man who keeps locksmith receipts in a shoebox and slept above his shuttered shop, on a cot that remembered better backs. Rena ferried burners wrapped in deli paper and newsprint that smelled like ink and old truth. The city was singing my melody on every station. Feds marching captains down stairs in cuffs. Kellen in a windbreaker with the sleeves pushed up like he still had a gym membership, jaw tight, eyes scanning for a camera that would love him back. He flipped quick. Men like him always do when the math changes. He tried to give them a bigger villain to worship. My name slid out of his mouth like a life raft. Mastermind, architect, ghost. Let him. Ghosts pass through walls. By sundown, Lila was loose. Witness review turned to witness release when her statement bled credibility and Monroe realized a broken compass won't lead you out of the woods. She walked out of a side door with a plastic bag of belongings and a look that didn't know where to land. Paparazzi aren't interested in poor girls who made rich mistakes. She vanished into the same alleys that raised me. Rena watched from across the street and called from a payphone that only eats quarters if you let it. She's heading toward the old laundromat on Kearney. Let her, I said. 40 minutes. Then send the message. What message? The one she gave me. Rena whistled low. You're cruel when you hurt. I'm precise. 40 minutes later, Lila's burner buzzed in her palm. No caller ID, just a sound like a dare. She answered with breath first, then voice. Hello. Play me. Same 2 words I'd fed her days ago, except this time the audio wasn't a Kellen cut. It was Lila, 6 months back, calling a number listed as dentist, a whisper wrapped in a laugh. 9 o'clock. Back door. He trusts me. Her voice, not doctored, not spliced, clean. Rena had pulled it from a backup Lila forgot existed, the kind that saves to the cloud even when you think the sky is empty. Truth is the only bomb you can detonate twice. Rena told me she staggered like the word itself hit her. She leaned against a dead neon tooth and slid down the wall, phone still pressed to her ear, listening to her own betrayal played back like a bad song you can't stop humming. When the clip ended, the next text came through. Blue Finch. Midnight. Bring the ring. The Blue Finch is a diner with a jukebox that's outlasted 3 owners and a coffee that tastes like burnt hope. It's where I first told Lila I'd get out, after one more. She'd taken off my ring and spun it on the tabletop, watched it wobble, watched it fall, smiled and said, "Then marry me to your last time." We both laughed like time was a pet we could train. Midnight, she came in shaking. The bell over the door announced her like a cheap trumpet. She wore the coat I bought in a winter that didn't have us in it yet. She kept her head down, but her hands told on her, left one cupped around that thin band of metal like it could bless her if she held it just right. I sat in a corner booth with my back to the room, body angled to the reflection in the chrome napkin holder. She sat 2 booths down, facing the window, like a person waiting on a bus out of a bad idea. I texted first. Left pocket. Turn it on. She found the burner under the salt packets and thumbed it awake. 1 number programmed. Already calling. She pressed it to her ear. My voice. Not live. Not yet. A recording I made in the locksmith loft with the city humming below me. You sold me and called it love, the voice said. Sit still. Don't look for me. Listen. Her shoulders folded. In the chrome, I watched her grip the ring hard enough to color her fingers. You like to say we were a team. So here's team rules you forgot. 1. If you play both sides, you end up under the table. 2. Fear teaches faster than comfort. I'm going to teach you. The bell over the door rang again. 2 men in black coats came in and didn't order. The first had a neck tattoo shaped like a poorly kept promise. The second kept his hands inside his jacket like warmth lived there. Not cops. Not mine. Kellen's leftovers, out-of-towners who'd taken cash from a sergeant who thought off the books meant never to be paid. Rena had told me to expect them. Cornered men send other men to be corners. They scanned the room and decided the woman alone was easier than the man with his back turned who looked like he might fight. They took the booth opposite Lila and smiled with no teeth. You Lila? Neck tattoo asked. She didn't answer. The recorded me did. That would be the part where you breathe and lie, it said. But don't. Not tonight. The second man slid an envelope onto the table. It bulged like an artery. From a friend, he said. For a plane ride. Money to make problems fly. Dirty bills I'd already seen once. Even washed cash keeps a scent if you know how to inhale. Marker dye that looks like the heartbeat of a bank, microlacerations from banding, cereal blocks that connect bingo cards to payrolls. I wasn't the only one who'd touched them. Internal Affairs had too, back when it was still pretending to be internal. Rena had grabbed 6 photos of those stacks during Kellen's "Don't Look Here" speech and filed them where Monroe could find them if she ever wondered why a girl suddenly had 10,000 reasons to run. Take it, the second man said. You leave tonight. You forget the ledger. You forget the recordings. Your husband, he's a ghost. Ghosts don't need company. Lila stared at the envelope like it might sprout teeth. She lifted it, hands shaking, then put it down. Put the ring on top of it. Spun it. It wobbled, fell, clinked, tiny, final. Good girl, Neck Tattoo said, reaching. Then the fire alarm howled. Rena loves theatrics. She'd palmed a coil under the counter during an innocent nod to the waitress, twisted 2 wires, and told the Finch to cry. Water dumped from the belly of the ceiling, greasy droplets baptizing old chrome and newer sins. The men flinched because men who carry guns hate wet hands. The cook cursed in a language I know like prayer. The jukebox hiccuped and died. I stood without hurry. The second man reached inside his jacket. I was already moving. Not for heroics. For math. The muzzle screamed once, stitched a hole in the vinyl where my shadow had been. I threw the coffee carafe. It broke against his ear in a glassy hymn. Neck Tattoo lunged shiny and dumb. I let him get close so I could love him with my elbow properly, down, into the hinge where jaw meets memory. He collapsed into his own coat like it had betrayed him. "Danny!" Lila screamed, voice strangled. I didn't look at her. The second man was already thinking of his knees, which was helpful. It made them easy to collect with a chair. He fell and the gun spat a tantrum into the ceiling, sprinklers coughing harder as if to encourage him to think about his choices. I kicked the pistol under the counter into a nest of napkins and ketchup. The waitress stood behind the register with a mouth like an O and a hand on a baseball bat she didn't know she owned. "Out," I told her gently. "Back door." She moved. People always move when it's the voice, the one I save for moments that don't want to be saved. Rena slipped through steam and noise and grabbed Lila's wrist. Lila pulled away the way a burned hand rejects ice. "No," she said. "I'm with him." "You were," Rena said. "Now you're with consequences." We poured into the alley as sirens started flirting with the block. Rena vanished right, a shadow returning to its source. I walked left with Lila on a string of distance and silence. The cold bit everything it could reach. We ducked under the shutter of the elevated train and let its metal roar leave a ring in the air. "You set that up," she said. "Not a question." "I set up a lesson," I said. "They brought the test. They would have killed me. They were paid to." I stopped. Turned. "Let her see me. Now you know what it tastes like." Rainwater and sprinkler runoff had turned her hair to ink, her mascara to maps. She looked like the girl who lifted my lighter and the woman who lit my life on fire. "I'm sorry," she said. 2 words dragged behind a truck. "I know." I took the ring from her palm. It was cold as coins. I slipped it back to her. "This doesn't belong to me anymore. It belongs to what you did with it." "What do you want?" she asked. The real question. The one behind the others. Truth. Paid in full. I told them. "You told them what Kellen needed to buy time. Truth isn't depositions. It's debt." I handed her a folded paper from my pocket. Addresses. Names. Amounts. 10,000 to each of these. Cashier's checks. You walk them in yourself, you say the words yourself. I profited off your pain. The guard from the 405. He lived. His hands still shake when he pours milk for his kid. You start there. She looked at the list like a path through snow. And then you go see Monroe. Not to save me. To damn you. You tell her every switch you flipped, every call you made, the times, the dates. You don't bargain. You own it. You let her decide how much future you get. And you. Her voice was small and huge. I'm already judged. She reached for me and stopped. Do you hate me? I swallowed a laugh that wasn't funny. Hate's heavy. I travel light. We stood with the train's ghost still ringing and the city deciding whether to swallow us or spit us out. She tucked the paper inside her coat like it could heat her. She put the ring back on and it fit different, like rings do when fingers learn something. I loved you, she said, mouth around a past tense that cut us both. I know, I said. Present tense, because knowing persists. Behind us, the finch screamed and then didn't. Ahead of us, a street lamp flickered the way eyes do when they've cried too long. I handed her a final phone, cheap, stubborn, primed with one number named Sunset. When you're done with the list, press it, I said. One time. You'll get an address. What's there? The end of this. Or the beginning. Depends on how you read. She nodded. Will you be there? If you've earned it. She laughed once, broken, brave. Always a test with you. Always a test with the world, I said. I just grade fair. I watched her go until the street turned her into a smaller problem for another light. Rena slid out of a shadow with a grin and a bruise darkening on her cheekbone. Romantic, she said. Educational, I said. You think she does it? She's good at lists, I said. She wrote ours. Rena leaned on the brick, exhaled smoke like a saint would exhale forgiveness if saints smoked. Kellen's people won't stop with 2 meatheads and a man who can't shoot in the rain. They will if there's nothing left to buy. You emptied the accounts. I showed them sunlight. Money hates sunlight. She tapped my arm, eyes narrowing. You ready for the last part? I looked at the city that raised me and tried to break me and finally learned my name. "Ready," I said. "I've got something left to take." "What?" "Myself," I said. "Back." Rena smiled because thieves love returns. Midnight blew apart into 1 a.m. and then 2, the hours where truth walks home with its shoes in its hands. Somewhere, a ledger closed. Somewhere else, a door opened. And in a kitchen I could still draw from memory, a woman I used to trust held a list under a lamp and began to pay. Morning came on like a bruise, slow, tender in the wrong places. I brewed coffee on a hot plate that hissed like a snake with opinions and listened to the city inventory its damage. News anchors practiced new pronunciations of old names. A councilman swore he'd never met the shell company that paid his son's tuition. Kellen's lawyer bragged about cooperation from day one, which is a polite way of saying, I flipped before the cuffs cooled. Rena slid through the locksmith's side door without knocking, pocketing the bell like a magician. She tossed today's burner onto the milk crate I used for a table. "Your girl's doing the list," she said. "Went to the guard's apartment first. Shaky hands, kid in dinosaur pajamas." She cried. He didn't. Took the check, made her read the sentence twice. She read it like prayer. I poured 2 chipped mugs. Good. She stopped at 3 other doors. Old lady with a walker. A busboy who took knife lessons from the wrong night. A nurse who patched a hole you made in someone else's sky. She said the words to all of them. Didn't try to explain. I could see Lila's face getting older at each stoop. She'll press sunset when she's done. Rena sipped. And when she does, she meets a door I.O. You going to tell me what's behind it? She asked. A lock I promised not to pick until I'd earned it, I said. We're close. By noon I felt the city's pulse find a new rhythm. Less panic, more calculation. Scavengers moving in. People who sell security by pointing at fear. They'd missed that I'd emptied the trough and salted the ground. Most of the money was frozen and flagged, not because I wanted to starve anyone, but because cash buys louder guns. I wanted quiet. Monroe called from a number that pretended to be a florist. You're making friends, she said dryly. I've never needed many. I should thank you, she said. But it's hard to send a card to an arsonist because the house you burned had termites. You're welcome anyway. She exhaled. Not quite a sigh. Kellen's talking. There are tapes. Meetings off books at an uptown steakhouse with a private humidor and a back exit that thinks it's discreet. Your ledger was the index. His voice is the book. People believe stories they can hear. And see. There's security footage. But the owner won't give it up without a warrant and a reason not to die in a freak grease fire. Send him sunset when we're done, I said. You keep saying that, she said. What is sunset? A door. You like doors, she said. I like choices, I said. When she hung up, Rena flicked a cigarette she hadn't lit and let it draw circles in the air. You trust Monroe? I trust her to be the kind of honest that survives elections. That's enough. Around 3, the burner chirped. Not a ring. A hiccup. Sunset triggered. 1 press, 1 echo, 1 destination. I'd chosen the address months ago because confession deserves its own acoustics. Not a church, those are crowded with ghosts that talk over you. Not a station, those are crowded with people who praise themselves. A storage facility by the river. Gray doors, long corridors that teach you what echo really means. Unit 47. Paid in cash for a year by a man who died in 2009. Rena glanced at the screen and lifted an eyebrow. You're sentimental. Sometimes, I said. We left the locksmith by the back stair, took alleys that know me by first name, crossed under a billboard where a lawyer promised to love us for 30% of our pain. The river smell got thick. Metal, leaf rot, a little diesel. The storage office clerk didn't look up from his tablet when we waved past. Rena had been tipping him with gossip and scratchers for weeks. Unit 47 rolled up with the easy obedience of a thing that knows it belongs to me. Inside, nothing glamorous. 2 cheap chairs, a workbench, a metal locker, and on the wall, a taped-up map of the city with threads tacking points like constellations. Above the bench hung a key ring with 1 key that mattered, a long-necked brass thing older than all my regrets. Rena ran a finger along the locker door, felt the cold. "This the lock you waited on?" "Yeah." I slid the key in and turned. It fought the way old locks do, then decided to remember me. Inside, a battered duffel, a hard case, and a cigar box that never learned to hold cigars. Rena flipped the latch on the box. Inside, neatly nested, were 3 USB sticks, 2 burner SIMs, a receipt for a safety deposit in a town that never got a right-hand turn, and a folded photo of me and Lila at the Blue Finch before it knew our names. "This your insurance," she said. "This was my way out," I said. "Before I learned there isn't one." I pocketed 1 USB, the one with a blued, and slid the others to Rena. "If I don't walk out with you, deliver those to Monroe, the Tribune, and the radio station that still plays late-night jazz." "You're not dying today," she said, like saying it made it law. "Today's not the day I choose it," I said. She started to argue, then the footsteps answered for us, soft, cautious, stopping 2 doors down, starting again, then stopping in front of 47. Lila's knuckles on the steel sounded like someone knocking at their own house after they moved out. I opened. She stepped in and looked around like people look at a childhood room after a fire. "This where you keep the parts of you didn't want me to see?" she asked. "This is where I kept the parts of me I wanted to be worthy of you," I said. She flinched. I pressed sunset. I finished the list. The guard cried after I left. The old lady didn't. She said, "You said the sentence better than the man who took it from me." I don't know if that makes me better or worse. "It makes you honest," I said. "How many doors?" 8. "There are 12. I'll do the rest by night." Rena nodded against the wall, a warden with Mercy in her pocket. "Sit," she told Lila, and handed her water like it was sacramental. Lila drank, set the bottle down with both hands. "What is this place?" "Neutral ground," I said. "A place where the story goes to tell the truth about itself." "You always talk like that when you're planning to hurt someone," she said. "Only when I'm planning to end something," I said. "There's one last ledger page." "I thought you leaked everything." "Not the first page," I said. "The one that tells you who wrote it." Rena's eyes cut to me. "You're sure?" "Enough to wager my quiet," I said. I dropped the USB on the table. The blue dot looked innocent. Kellen worked for somebody. A fixer in a better suit who taught him to wag his tail without barking. This thumb has the fixer's schedule, his calls, the Mondays he asked for forgiveness, the Saturdays he bought it. "Where'd you get it?" Rena asked. "From him," I said, and pointed up, not to the ceiling, to the idea above it. "His guy's guy. Everyone has a Rena." Lila's voice got small. "And what do we do with it?" "We go give it to the only room left that can swallow it," I said. "Not Monroe's. She's already drowning. Not the press. They're still putting on their shoes. We take it to the grand jury. Monroe's boss convened this morning to look strong. We put it in the record where erasers don't work." Rena smiled like a blade. "We, Not usually your pronoun." "Today it is," I said. I looked at Lila. "You'll stand beside me and say your sentence one more time. In a room that doesn't do mercy." She stared at the USB like it might bite. "And then you and I walk out different as strangers," I said. "You to what they give you. Me to what I took back." She nodded, a slow surrender to gravity. "Okay." Rena's burner chirped before we took a step. She glanced down and her face lost its smirk. "We got company." "Whose?" "Theirs," she said, and tilted the screen so I could see a text with a location pin crawling toward us. "Not Kellen's leftovers. Something heavier. 3 cars. Off-grid radios. People who believe in permanent solutions." "They shouldn't know this place," I said. "They do now," Rena said. I killed the unit lights and cracked the door. Outside, the corridor's fluorescent hissed like a liar about to get called on it. Tires whispered over gravel. A van door sighed. Boots. At least 6. A whisper of safeties being convinced. "Back door," I said, pointing to the storage unit's thin panel where maintenance liked to smoke and pretend to fix things. Rena pulled the toolbox from under the bench and popped it. I took the driver, she took the pry. Together we persuaded the panel from its screws. Lila watched, palms flat on her thighs, breathing like it might need help. The first fist hit the main door, polite. The second hit was a question. The third didn't ask. Go, I told Lila. Down the service hall, left at the vending machine that never worked. Stairs to the loading dock. Rena will be on your shoulder. What about you? Her voice had the old fear, but not the old lie. I'll take the long way and tell them a story, I said, grabbing the hard case. Not a gun. A laptop with a toothy antenna, ugly and hungry. They came for a kill. They might leave with a confession. Rena squeezed my forearm once, all the words we didn't have time for. 2 minutes, she said. Then I call the floor fireworks. Make it 90 seconds, I said. The panel groaned open. Lila slid through, Rena after, a shadow folding into a thinner one. I turned the light back on and sat at the bench like a man about to play a hand with bad cards and good posture. When the door finally buckled, they came in stacked, masks, optics, a smell of rubber and duty-free cologne. The leader took one look and recalculated. You're Cole, he said. Depends who's asking, I said. He didn't give a name. Men like him think names are tax. You've got property that doesn't belong to you. Everything in here is paid up, I said. The other property, he said. I flipped the laptop and let the screen bloom. The room lit blue, like a television for giving a family. The leader's visor picked up the reflection and their trigger fingers got nervous. What's that? He asked. A doorbell, I said, and hit enter. Outside somewhere, a siren changed its mind about distance. Inside, somewhere, a cell tower remembered an old friend and rerouted a packet the size of a prayer. On the laptop, a window opened. Monroe's secure inbox, black bag official, already addressed, already attached. I wasn't sending the blue dot thumb, that would be rude. I was sending a live location of the men's comms pinging from a restricted procurement list only 3 agencies can order from. And a copy to a judge who hates being lied to during lunch. You can shoot me, I said, and smiled with all my teeth, or you can help me carry this upstairs and pretend you switched sides before it was fashionable. They didn't move. Behind them, down the service hall, a pair of footsteps faded toward a dock and a new life. Above us, the building breathed. The leader lifted his chin just enough to show he had won. You think you know who we work for? I know who he works for, I said, nodding at his second. And I know the person above that. The one who thought a ledger was just numbers. He glanced at the laptop, then at my hands, which were empty and clean, and at the USB still on the table with its little blue like an eye that doesn't blink. Pick, I said. Truth or noise? For a long second the room belonged to the clock. Then his rifle lowered half an inch. Enough. He jerked his head at the table. One of his men stepped forward to take the USB. I closed my hand over it. Upstairs, I said. Grand jury. We walk. You look like escorts. Everyone lives. He considered killing me anyway. You can always see it arrive, a shadow crossing a face like a passing cloud. Then he swallowed it. 90 seconds, he said. Already spent, I said. We're on borrowed. We moved as a strange parade, me in front with an old laptop and a small piece of plastic that weighed more than some sins, 6 men with reasons to rethink their careers, outside, a river pretending not to witness. At the loading dock, the service door stood open, and beyond it the stairwell echoed with recent ghosts. Rena had left a single cigarette, but at the landing like a signature. After this, the leader said as we climbed, you're done. After this, I said, I'm something else. What? Harder to buy, I said. We hit the top door and the city's breath met ours. The courthouse spire cut the sky like a blade. Sirens braided themselves into a rope that might pull someone from a well. I tucked the USB into my palm and told myself there are only 2 kinds of endings, the ones you earn and the ones you owe. We were going to find out which kind this was. The courthouse smelled of old dust and fresh fear. You could taste it in the marble, like ghosts holding their breath. I walked between 2 men who'd come to silence me, now looking for orders they no longer believed in. Their leader kept one hand on his earpiece, listening to static that carried no voice. The plan they'd been handed had collapsed somewhere in the echo of gunfire and data packets. That's the thing about truth, you can't shoot it fast enough. We crossed the rotunda, past a clerk pretending not to notice the rifles, and into the elevator that groaned with secrets. On the top floor, double doors opened into a conference room full of suits and guarded smiles. The federal seal hung on the wall like a saint who'd stopped believing. At the head of the table sat Agent Monroe, a laptop open, eyes sharp as cut glass. "You made quite an entrance," she said, glancing at the escort. "I assume they're with you now?" "For the moment," I said. The leader shifted, uneasy. Monroe gestured to the chairs. "Sit, gentlemen. If you're here, you've already chosen the side that files paperwork instead of obituaries." They didn't sit, but they lowered their weapons enough for the room to breathe. I set the USB on the table, that small blue dot blinking like a heartbeat. "This is the first page," I said. "Names, dates, transactions. The architect behind the ledger." Monroe didn't touch it. "You're certain?" Cross-checked with Kellen's confessions, voice samples, and bank shadows. The man who built the network. The one who thought the law was just another account to balance. She looked at the device like it might whisper. "What do you want in return?" "Nothing," I said. "No deals, no protection. Just acknowledgement. Acknowledgement. That I was never crazy, never reckless, just thorough." Monroe's eyes softened a fraction. "You'll have it." A marshal stepped forward, took the USB, slotted it into a secure terminal. The screen filled with lines of code, then names, judges, councilmen, contractors, uniforms with badges too polished. Gasps spread like ripples. One of the suits muttered a curse, another crossed himself. Monroe stood straighter, voice clear. "Record shows receipt of evidence linking organized crime, law enforcement, and municipal contracts. We move to seal these proceedings and convene a grand jury." She turned to me. "Mr. Cole, you're free to go." Freedom. The word hung in the air like smoke, pretty and dangerous. I nodded once. "Then my work's done." As I turned, the leader of the escorts caught my sleeve. "You just burned an empire," he whispered. "What's left for you?" I thought of Lila, walking door to door with cashier's checks and confessions, paying debts you can't calculate in dollars. I thought of Rena, who'd already vanished into another city with a pocket full of new names. I thought of myself, no gang, no ledger, no wife, no war. "What's left," I said, "is quiet." Outside, the day was breaking open. Reporters swarmed the steps, microphones like weapons, eyes hungry for headlines. Monroe handled them, words measured, promising justice without saying my name. I slipped through the side exit, down to the street where the city's heartbeat stumbled but didn't stop. Rena waited by a rusted sedan, window down, music low. She didn't smile. "So, over," I said. She studied my face, searching for cracks. "You believe that?" "I believe in endings," I said, sliding into the passenger seat. We drove with the windows down, air sharp with rain. Billboards still glared promises, traffic still cursed, the city still pretended it didn't know what just happened. Somewhere behind us, files were being copied, handcuffs polished. Somewhere ahead, a skyline that never learned. At the waterfront, she pulled over. The river moved slow, carrying reflections like confessions. I stepped out, the wind tugging at my coat. From my pocket, I pulled the last piece of the ledger, a single folded note, handwritten by the man who started it all. "Everyone has a price." I tore it once, twice, until it was confetti, and let the wind decide where corruption should scatter. Rena joined me, lighting a cigarette. "You going to find her?" "If she finishes the list, she'll find me," I said. "And if she doesn't?" "Then she learned half the lesson." Rena flicked ash into the current. "What about you?" "I start over." She laughed softly. "Doing what?" "Something honest," I said. "For once." We stood there until the sun pushed through the clouds, thin light painting the water gold. The city behind us groaned, healing or hiding, it was hard to tell which. I watched the horizon and felt the weight ease, piece by piece. Lila's voice lingered in memory. "I love you." Maybe she meant it. Maybe love was just another currency we miscounted. But I'd cashed it in, and the ledger balanced. When Rena's cigarette burned to the filter, she tossed it away. Time to disappear. Time to live, I said. We walked back to the car, two ghosts stepping into daylight, leaving behind a city that finally had to answer to itself. And as the engine turned over, I realized the truth I'd been chasing all along wasn't revenge or redemption. It was silence, the kind you earn when every debt's been paid. The kind that lets you breathe without looking over your shoulder.